Hey, what's happening everyone? I'm SirJames coming at you guys with another video. Hopefully you guys are doing alright. Today I'm here to give you guys my review on the Ultimate Works Darth Maul Lightsaber. And some of you might be pointing out, saying, isn't this like my third time reviewing this particular hilt? And the answer is yes. To clarify, the first time around was reviewing the Darth Maul Lightsaber from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the Legacy version. And then I did a review for the first time getting a custom version of the Maul Saber. It was more of one that I found on Facebook from someone that was selling it. And I was like the 5th owner at the time because it's had previous owners since then. And at the time it had the NeoPixel setup, which I liked, and then it had the Nano Biscotti soundboard, which was an alright soundboard for what it is. But as I kind of get into the custom lightsabers, I found out personally, for my interest, that I not only like a NeoPixel setup, but I also love the smooth swing functionality. And unfortunately that particular board didn't support that and only had a maximum of 3 fonts that I could support, and I couldn't even access the internal parts because of how I was made. So eventually when I got familiar with the Ultimate Works sabers and the Asteria soundboard, which I become to like actually, it may not be the best one on the market, but it's definitely a good one regardless if you're looking to maybe getting a first time custom saber. So what I ended up doing is that I sold the other Darth Maul hilt in favor of getting this one as a nice upgrade. So now I have a Darth Maul lightsaber with not only NeoPixel but smooth swing, and also one that I could access the internal portions of this, so I could keep adding fonts if I wanted to, at least up to 12 different banks, which I think could be extended up to 16 if I'm not mistaken. So let me give you guys a closer look and then we'll kind of go into a little bit more detail from here. Now you may kind of notice that this particular Darth Maul lightsaber is a little bit different compared to how it looked when I originally unboxed it here on the channel. That's because there was a little bit of a subtle change here in terms of its appearance, which was adding or getting some black paint and adding a lot of these black bits here, which will kind of go down in order. So for example, in the upper sections here, that was actually done with some black paint. Just basically taped it off and then just kind of wiped away some of the paint that didn't need to be there, like on this outer section. Here we have a rubber O-ring, which was already there out of the box. Painted this section here. And then over here, instead of paint, it was more of a marker just because of how thin this line was. This was also done in paint. Then we have another rubber O-ring, which was already there out of the box. Again, another marker section. Then of course our connector, and it's replicated the same way on the bottom portion too. So again, just replicated the same way. That way when you look at it, it looks a lot better instead of just being a all gray look with a few red buttons. So definitely a huge improvement. So I would recommend that to anyone that plans on getting a Ultimate Works Darth Maul saber, or maybe just any variation of the Darth Maul saber if that's not already done like that. Next thing I want to go ahead and address is a little a tweak, if you will, is that the first night that I ended up getting the saber, I brought it outside to go ahead and swing it around after I fixed the font issue, which we'll go over in just a moment. And one of the things that happened is that as I grabbed it towards this middle section here, is that you have these 2 additional red buttons, which don't do anything, by the way. And because you could still press down on them, every time I grabbed it in these sections, it kept throwing off my grip, just give me that awkward feeling, or to the point where I feel like these things were going to break off. And in fact, at one point, one of the red buttons actually did come apart. And it was a pain trying to find all the little pieces that came with it, which is like a spring and then a couple little pieces to go along with that. So what I ended up doing, and which actually worked for me, is that on the secondary red buttons here, you could kind of see the cable here more on this one compared to the other one, is that I had this thin cable. I took some glue and I basically tightened that cable on this bottom section, so now you can't press this down at all. So which means that for me personally, when I now grab it here in this section, I don't feel like, you know, I'm going to possibly break these buttons again. Or, you know, not really break, it was more, it just came unscrewed. But I just made it in a way to where when I grab it here, I'm not going to have that awkward feeling now anymore. So that worked out a lot better for me. The other thing that I also did is that I also glued down the buttons on the top section, which which the red one is your main activation, and this one will be your secondary button, by the way. So I had another issue where this one got unscrewed while I was swinging this around. So I just basically took a little bit of glue, and I just basically on the thread just kind of glued it back on. You could still activate this perfectly fine. It's just now it's to the point where that's not going to accidentally come off, and I don't have to deal with that issue again of trying to find in the little upper grass areas that little piece. So that's what I ended up doing. Whether or not you want to do that with yours is completely up to you, but again, I can still use this perfectly fine without any issues whatsoever. Another thing I will mention is in terms of how this is feel comfortably, and this feels great. In fact, this particular hilt feels very identical to the Corbanth hilt. Now, they're not exactly the same in terms of the actual manufacturer and whatnot. I did notice that on the Corbanth one, the emitter section was a little bit smaller compared to the Ultimate Works version, but still, regardless, they actually look very nice between the two. And the other thing that I thought was actually quite neat is that if I were to remove this emitter and to remove the emitter off the Corbanth Darth Maul, you could actually thread the Corbanth emitter onto the Ultimate Works one. So I thought that was pretty cool. Some compatibility things going on there. Now, another thing to go ahead and point out, as I mentioned before, is the saber fonts. Out of the box, both hilts are programmed the same way, same exact order for the fonts. And basically, one of the things I actually didn't know after having some Ultimate Works sabers for a while now is that apparently when you're cycling through your fonts, if your saber is facing upwards, your font bank will go in the corresponding order, like 1, 2, 3, 4, while if your hilt was facing down, it will go in the exact opposite order, which that I didn't even know was a feature, but apparently it is. So I actually kind of like that. But one thing that you should definitely kind of keep note is that when you are adding your fonts and whatnot, is that you should definitely kind of take one of them and do it in the exact opposite. So for example, whatever's going to be the top hilt, doesn't matter, keep it the same way, bank 1 through 12. However, on the opposite one, take the fonts and renumber them. So for example, bank number 1 is now the new number 12, and then bank 12 is your new number 1, and then just list all the other ones accordingly. So that way, when you hold down the buttons to cycle between the different fonts, you will be on the same exact font on each hilt, rather than being on two different ones. Unless if you want to be on two different ones, then that's completely up to you. So let's go ahead and just kind of turn this on.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
So I had to get it the proper tone there. I had it to where when this one boots on, or it doesn't matter which one I point to anyways, but I basically have it to where when one of them boots on, it's got the quote from Darth Maul, and then on the other one have the music, so that way when you turn this on at the same exact time, it just has a nice theming tone to it. So let's go ahead and again point out that when you press the secondary button on both of them at the same time,
Empress Palpatine.
and the key is to try to press them at the same time, otherwise you'll kind of get the dialogue to not match up.
I am Sith.
So for example, this one is your Darth Maul saber font, just to kind of quickly activate really quick. So again, you got your smooth swing, you got your clash. And do note that obviously the sound ventilation is coming right here in the center, so when you're gripping it here in the center, it's going to be a lot muffled compared to if you grip it other ways. So it's kind of one thing to do note that as you're swinging this around, if you're grabbing it in the center, the sound's going to be muffled compared to on the other ends here, where you can hear it perfectly fine. Now another thing too is that if you do end up putting music on here, all you need to do is just press down the secondary switch. I believe it was like 2 or 3 times, so let's go ahead and try to get these at the same time. Yeah, copyright music, that's for sure. So there you go. Like I said, if you wanted to have music on there, cool. And you could even have the music playing while your saber is lit up too, so that's pretty neat. Also too, another thing to point out, is that if you press down on the power button quickly, you could actually mute it, and then you could go ahead and quickly press down again to go ahead and reactivate. I think I reactivate, did I? Let's see. Yep, I did. It's kind of hard to hear because I had the other side also going on at the same time. You do get these nice blade plugs that were also provided, which is very neat, so you can go ahead and have that in there when you have it on display. And of course you have your CoverTech wheel on both hilts. Now the other neat thing too is that unlike the Corbath one that I had, where you had to plug in a pommel cap to keep the electronics from coming out, is that here you actually don't need to worry about a pommel cap. So I'm going to go ahead and remove one of the hilts here. Because I also want to take the opportunity to remove one of the chassis here. And I guess just before the saber automatically turns itself off, because there is a auto power off, we're going to go ahead and power this off at the same time.
Town, is it? I can't say yours is a name familiar to me.
So I thought I'd add a little bit of Clone Wars in there. Alright, so here we go. Now that they're disconnected, the main connector is still right here. In fact, there's actually, if you're kind of curious, how do you align your pieces? You have to loosen that and basically put the pieces on and then unscrew it and tighten that bolt there. So that way when you screw these on, your pieces will fit perfectly and you don't have that issues from, you know, being like off to the side or whatever. So anyways, as I mentioned on the bottom here, actually let's best turn this on.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
So there is a little crystal in there that just pulsates red, and even if this was turned on, that just kind of blink more, so it kind of has its own little power setting instead of just being like a stable red. And there's also, kind of hard to see there, but definitely a lot of detail in there is what I'm trying to get at, so it looks very nice. Now the other main question that you might be having,
Is it?
sorry, I turned it off.
Say yours is a name familiar to me.
Now the other main question that you might have is, how do you access your chassis? Which, before we do that, I want to go ahead and take the opportunity to use the scale to go ahead and weigh how much the saber weighs, just the hilts. Now with just the hilts, it's 2 pounds 3.7 ounces, so that is how much it's going to weigh when you have the saber put together. Now in order to access your chassis, what you need to do is the following. 1, unscrew the emitter. So just like that. And then you can go ahead and either keep or remove the D-ring there, whatever works best for you. There are these 2 screws right here. There's one here and one right here next to where basically those LED lights are at. Which, if you are curious, can you program those LED lights? And the answer is no. They are basically on a sequence, so they are going to do whatever sequence they are programmed to do. But for the most part, you could add fonts on there. All the fonts that I showcase in the demo video here shortly are all CFX fonts, by the way. And then, of course, you could change how it sounds when you boot on the saber or turn off, like you've also heard here. And, of course, you could also change the way the sound goes when you're changing the different colors. But once you remove those screws, you can go ahead and remove the chassis. You do not want to touch the gold pins. You just want to go ahead and grab it in a safe location that's not a gold pin. And here is what the removable chassis will look like. So keep in mind that if you do get the Ultimate Works Darth Maul Lightsaber and you have previously owned Ultimate Works sabers, those chassis will not work with the Darth Maul. The Darth Maul one here uses its own custom one, so meaning that the Darth Maul chassis will only work with the Darth Maul Lightsaber, no other one. So we have our SD card here, we got our main board. What's actually cool too is that there's some writing on here, the Arabic. So if you want to take the honors in translating that, feel free to go ahead and test your skill there. Now the other cool thing too is that this also has a crystal chamber. It's not like, you know, the greatest looking crystal chamber, but there is one there. And also some more writing there, which this one I will translate for you, says Maul. The other cool thing too is that we're going to go ahead and turn this on.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
So there is our crystal chamber. And of course you could cycle through the different colors. So again, pretty neat. I do like that. Alright, so now that I'm outside, I'm going to go ahead and cycle through the different fonts here, go through some different colors and whatnot, and then give you guys my final verdict. I do have the puppies out here, so they may bark, they may not, who knows, but I'll just go ahead and kind of go for it and see what happens. So the first font that I have currently set on here is a Darth Maul font. So let's go ahead and activate. Empress Palpatine with the chaotic effect.
I am Sith. I am Sith.
Oop. I didn't press these at the same time. Next up.
Might have been a proud warrior once, but now you're just a pawn in Dooku's game.
Vengeance.
It has to be this way. I will have my vengeance.
Not good.
I will have my vengeance.
Wrong way.
Not good. Not good.
Maybe I won't go easy on you this time. Maybe I won't go easy on you this time.
Lord Vader. Empress Palpatine.
Alright, so let's go ahead and get back to the room and wrap this up. Alright, so now that we are back, hopefully you guys enjoyed the little demo there. You'll probably notice that I didn't go too crazy as far as the swings go compared to what I do with the Ultra Saber stunt sabers that I have. And the only reason why is because since this is a custom hilt, I don't want to risk dropping it. And secondly, because you have these additional buttons that kind of stick out from the hilt, it does still throw me off a little bit as I'm gripping it. I'm kind of used to using a hilt that's for the most part pretty solid all the way around with no additional bits and pieces hanging off the actual hilt itself. But that's just kind of, you know, a personal preference of what I'm accustomed to at this point in time. But it's still a fun saber to have regardless. Now, if I forgot to mention is that out of the box, I actually did get this as a complete install from the pack store, which it was, the time of ordering was on May 4th from their sale. And then it only took about a month or so for me to get, so definitely not too bad of a wait time. But pretty much in the box, not only do you get your complete hilts, but also did include both chassis since this was a full install. The chassis that they're using in terms of the soundboard is the Asteria 2.0 soundboard, not 2.5. Now you also do get 2 included stands, 2 plates. You get a bag full of tools for both hilts, plus the larger tool to go ahead and use with that center connector piece. But basically just a ton of things out of the box. Another thing that you also get is 2 7/8 NeoPixel blades, which come in at 36 inches long. Now the reason why I didn't use that for my demo video is because the blades are extremely long and it's very hard for me to handle. And plus, the other thing that I kind of noticed having those really long blades is that it's really wobbly on the ends. Like with my 28-inch blades, I don't have that wobble effect, but because of those longer blades, there's just less stability at that very end, and it just kind of flops around. So you could use whatever joke you want to toss in there. I know what you guys are doing right now. But yeah, regardless, I think this is a great saber. If you could basically sell those, 36-inch blades and get something a little bit shorter, maybe a 30-inch or a 32-inch blades, I think that would be a much more of a better suit for that. And if I only had any complaint, I would really wish that Ultimate Works or the Pack Store, I wish there was an option where you can choose the length of the blade that you want. I think that would be a much better option, so that way when you get this out of the box, you're going to be happy with everything that you get. But again, everyone's going to have their own personal opinions. That's just my opinion right there. But regardless, would I recommend this product? And the answer is yes. If you are someone that is a Darth Maul fan, maybe you got a cosplay you're putting together, or you're just looking for specifically a Darth Maul custom saber, one that's completely installed, ready to go, then I think this is a good option. Now, if you guys were to ask me if down the road, if another option came up for like a CFX install or the Profi 2.2, would I ever consider selling this one in favor of those? Honestly, probably not. I'm happy with this one regardless, and I don't really see myself upgrading this one anytime soon, unless if custom lightsabers go through a dramatic change in the next 5 years. Then I'm definitely happy with sticking with this one for the foreseeable future until we get real lightsabers or something crazy like that. But until then, I am SirJames, and if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comment section down below. A link to this or to the sites is in the description, by the way, and I'll see you guys on the next video review.